Hey guys, welcome to Glad Trad Podcast.
How's it going?
This is Rudy.
And I'm Jordan. At least last time I checked, I was.
Welcome back, and we're happy to have you again. And this episode, we're going to be talking about how to survive holidays as a trad.
So happy early Thanksgiving, first off, Rudy.
Yeah, thank you. I've already had two.
Wait, what?
Thanksgiving events.
Two Thanksgiving events?
Yeah.
Not even the full thing, just
so the third one's going to be the charm.
That's three you're going to have.
Yeah.
It's not fair. How much family do people love you?
Well, well, we did one for one of our family members who's doing traveling on Thanksgiving Day. And just today, it was an awesome day. I went into work and we had a work Thanksgiving, which was really cool because we got the rest of the day off after.
Okay, so I
fun
think
and festivities.
There's a certain kind of ecological sin you have to confess with that, because the amount of all
the turkey,
you ate, all of it that died.
Yep.
Man, dude, I don't know. That's when you got to talk to the bishop about.
I don't know, man.
Well, still happy early Thanksgiving. And if you're listening to this, it is only a few days until Turkey Day. And congratulations. You are now the only traditional Catholic in the family. You're going back. Surprise. Who'da thunk? You're going back home with Uncle Joe and your crazy Aunt Betty and mom and dad and your sister who you hate, but you really do love.
And Uncle Joe just so happens to be a deacon.
Oh, yeah.
Permanent deacon.
Deacon Joe. Yeah. Deacon Joe. Deacon Joe, he's obsessed with guitars, by the way. He's the one with the tambourine in mass, actually, right on the altar. So for this, we figured that as a traditional Catholic, how do you survive Turkey Day the trad way? Because I think for you too, right? You're the only traditionalist in your family. Yeah,
for the most part. Actually, I think I'm probably the only practicing Catholic in my family.
Ooh, can we get some F's in the chat, please?
Yeah, please. Please pray for me.
Can we get some Oran's postures, please, in the chat?
Can we get some sad reacts only?
Oof. So you're going home, and it's not only that you're Catholic, but you're the worst kind. You're the Latin one.
Yeah, well, there's Catholics in our family, but let's just say they aren't the most intentional Catholics.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, cafeteria.
Yes, mm-hmm. There are some of those, and there are some that completely reject some of the dogmatic teachings of the church.
Yeah.
So that's always hard.
That's hard, yeah, especially if you come and dogma, you're like, it's here. I'm not straying from it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Luther was as a heretic. Whoops. I mean, glad. How do I spin that gladly? Luther was as a heretic. That's a glad thing to say. Yeah. I'm fortunate because I come from still a very strong, I would say they're like the JP2 conservative Catholic type. I call it that's a backbone of America kind of Catholic type, mm-hmm. where my traditionalism is more of they're like, congratulations, like that's awesome. And then they continue digging into their ham.
Wow, that's great. That sounds pleasant.
I don't know if I'd rather trade that for like the 3 turkey days you're obviously having, but it's a better environment, but it's not a perfect environment because I actually do have an Uncle Deacon in my family, by the way. Yeah, that's Uncle Roger. That's T.O. Roger. Who is Deacon, but he is a very good man. So I actually want to talk to him about that because he runs a Catholic bookstore in Albuquerque, New Mexico. #
cool.
Holy Family. What? And so they have one 1962 missal. They keep it constantly in stock, but apparently they have them getting bought up little by little in Albuquerque. So
that's neat.
Yeah.
I remember before I was discerning to be a priest, but then afterwards, I started down a different road. And then I was like, you know what? It would be really cool to be a permanent deacon. And I purchased this book. It was called The Joy of Being a Deacon. And I never read it. It was just something that I kept on my bookshelf.
just to flex on all the other Catholics that come home. Yeah. I'm thinking discerning being a deacon.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we should explain that a little bit. In the traditional rite, there aren't permanent deacons. There are transitional deacons that are... A transitional deacon is a person who is on their way towards being a priest. Whereas in the new rite, they have permanent deacons. So that's, men who can get married. And I think you have to be married
You have to be married before you become a deacon.
Right. And then you can have a family.
Yeah, so oftentimes it's kind of those like men who are already sort of pillars inside their churches.
Mhm.
My uncle did that next step to become a deacon. And now he can do baptisms, which he's done for a number of the little tykes of my family. Is that pretty much the only sacrament that they can confer?
Yeah, and they just assist the priest at the Mass.
Yeah, they assist the priest in the Mass. Of course, you'll see the deacon oftentimes will read the gospel.
Yes.
Which is something that happens, by the way, in the Tridentine Mass as well. A lot, if there's a subdeacon at Mass. It's a cool thing. I mean, listen, it's wonderful. It's nice to see holy men doing their sort of thing. I was never going to say I was going to be a deacon someday, but I made that compromise too. I was like, I could be a deacon someday after I'm married 30 years. Now I'm like, I'm going to let the professionals handle it.
Yeah, I'm just going to be a dad.
So what's it like? Okay, so you're with your extended family, and as a traditional Catholic, what are the sorts of like pitfalls? Do they give you any grief for it? Extended family otherwise? Or is it just kind of something that, oh, that's nice, Rudy, then they go back to have their turkey?
I've never had, a fire per se, but that's because before I go in, I discern who's going to be there, and I try and think of what kind of conversations that might take place with certain people. I won't give an example because I don't know if they're listening and I don't want them to take it the wrong way.
Right. Especially since this will be released before the day.
Hey, sit down. We have something to talk to you about. We heard your podcast.
The only episode we listened to. We are not.
So I've never had an actual situation where, I've had to be on the defense or anything like that. But on the other hand, there hasn't been an opportunity where I felt the need to hide that I'm a traditionalist. Yeah. That I hold to the traditional values of being a Christian, the teachings of the church. I try my best to live them out every day. And I've never felt the need to hide that per se. But I have taken into consideration who might be there, and I try and figure out the most tactful way, if the situation should arise, to defend the faith. I mean, we received that charge at our confirmation.
Become soldiers of Christ.
Yeah, become soldiers of Christ and be ready to defend the church. So I'm always trying to figure out a way to, maybe play chess. So to say, with what they're going to say.
There's something about tact, right? And I think especially when and oftentimes you're not only the traditionalist of the family. In your case, the Catholic of the family, the legitimate one, but also you're probably, the demographics don't lie. You're probably on the younger side. So that's already like 2 strikes out of 3, because your family's known you for, in a way, longer than you've known them consciously, and kind of see your transformation. It's like, especially when you're very new to tradition, there's that year, the 2 years where you just want to fight everything. Everything is a charge to defend the faith.
What did you say to me?
What you say? That's right.
You want to go, bro?
Are you clapping after mass, bro?
What did you say about confession not being a requirement?
Did you just call it a meal? A communal meal?
Did you just call it the wine and the bread? Did you just call our blessed Lord that?
And you'll go charging into anything, you know? You will take fights, and you'll do a shotgun blast approach, because again, the reason once more why we are glad trads is because becoming a traditionalist isn't a badge of honor that I get to wear and flex all the rest of my family with.
It's not a chip on your shoulder.
Hey, I see what you did. Yeah, exactly. It's not a chip on your shoulder. It is supposed to be, we now know the reason for our joy. You are having a more authentic understanding of Christ, and therefore of Christ's church. Going to the traditional Latin Mass, accepting the dogmas and tenets of the faith as it's been taught for thousands of years, having the traditional devotions and the traditional prayers, abstaining from meat on Friday, and taking your day of rest and ease very seriously. All those little pragmatic tips as a traditional Catholic. These are supposed to inspire. This is the faith that won the world over.
It's a discipline.
It's a discipline. And to go home and be angry, right? To go home and be the rad trad because your Aunt Susan fell away from the faith and now she has a chip on her shoulder too. And she or your grandma, I don't have this in my family, by the way. My family is wonderful. But in the hypothetical universe, your grandma remembers the change. Oh, the nuns were horrible, but I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I know that I was so happy when that Sanctus got changed into a tambourine. Why would you want to go back to that? I mean, that kind of stuff. And so you have to understand that you can't win them all. There's some battles also that you're not going to, it doesn't seem to me like you're going to actually do a lot of service for our Lord by engaging in. Just want to like go in and like punch every apostate in the face, and even, in my family, again, like they're for the most part, with like some notable exceptions, are Catholic at the core, and they're very solid, and it's mass every Sunday, and it's living out devotions and sacraments, and sacramentals are important in my family. Right. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to go home as a trad of the family and scoff because your mom still prefers to go to the guitar mass down the road that she's gone to since you were a baby, and then suddenly call their Catholicism into doubt because they're not chanting in Latin along with you.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? And that's a great point, because it's, again, we're talking about tact, right? If you can't see how that might not be the best approach to, to share traditional Catholic values with your family, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you might have blinders on. It's just most of the time it doesn't work that way. But that's not to say I don't want people to misinterpret us when we say like, oh, put it under a blanket, put your faith under a blanket or something like that. Because there are legitimate moments where, the Holy Ghost is calling us to say something to our family. And those moments oftentimes are moments of charity. Charity is something that we're all called to. And so in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it defines charity as the theological virtue by which we love God above all things for his own sake, and our neighbor as ourselves for the love of God. So there are going to be moments where the Holy Ghost is, giving you an opportunity to say something to your family, or maybe you run into a situation in a conversation that charity really is, prompting you to say something. I mean, let me give you a hypothetical situation. Let's say that you run into a conversation. What's funny though is actually, this is more common. This probably isn't even a hypothetical situation. I think people genuinely will go home and there's going to be a person in the family that brings something up, like a hot button issue. Yeah. Like, for example, abortion. Yeah. And they'll say, well, I think it's a woman's right to choose. I don't think in that moment the best thing to say or the best thing to do is to say nothing. I think in that moment, we're being prompted out of charity to say, no, that's not correct. Murdering a child in the womb is not a human right. But then we also have to keep in perspective, again, going back to tact, we have to keep in perspective that perhaps that family gathering is not the best place to have a longer conversation about why that's wrong. Maybe in that situation, knowing that it's not the best opportunity to get through to that person, you can say instead, look, you and I have a disagreement. If you want to keep talking about it, I would love to. I think it would be really great, actually, for us to talk about this in detail. But why don't we trade numbers, cousin, or whatever, and we can talk about it some other time. Here's my number. Reach out to me. I'll reach out to you. We'll talk about it some other time, because this conversation right now maybe is going to derail our family event.
That's right. That's right.
Because what happens is you get into it with your cousin, and that small disagreement, or in this case, a big disagreement, it all of a sudden has all the eyeballs of your family looking at it, and it very quickly turns into something emotional, illogical, and then the whole event derails. And that is the worst thing that you can do as a glad trad, is show up and ruin the party.
That's right. You are the party.
Well, you're not ruining the party because you don't hold a backwards believer.
Oh. Well, I think that
you'll get blamed for it.
There's a quote that I've heard time and time again, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but I'm sure you've heard it, which is that truth without love is cruelty, but love without truth is also cruelty. So if and we're not talking about like the cousin who's crazy and not going to listen whatsoever, but one who you think has an ability to at least hear the truth. It's all about tact, it's all about discernment, right? It's picking those battles for Christ properly. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have to understand that if this is going to tear down the whole family, you don't want to, if you do truth without love, if you just open the doors to the family gathering, hurl the truth grenade, and then run out like nothing happened, and you can't act surprised when the building explodes and nobody's going to be talking to each other until grandpa's funeral down the road. Mm-hmm. And you don't want that. And on the flip side, if you stay silent, well, he's just following his own path and doing his own thing or whatever. No, I mean, that's cruelty as well, because we're talking about, as Catholics, we have an obligation, as a church has an obligation, first and foremost, for the salvation of souls. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that, that charity is suddenly the antithesis of sound Orthodox teaching, and vice versa. One can be extraordinarily charitable. We're talking about one can be very, very kind and loving. And for me, that's authentic accompaniment. Mm-hmm. You'll hear that word thrown around so many times. But authentic accompaniment is doing exactly what Christ did and not morphing Christ into whatever vision we want of him. Christ sat with that woman at the well. And here's the thing, all throughout it, Christ knew exactly what situation she was in. Go get your husband. Well, I've been married multiple times and the man I'm with now isn't my husband. Christ goes, yeah, you answered correctly. Mm-hmm. And I love you and I want you to come to the fullness of the truth, which is why I tell you that I'm going to give you the eternal water. Mm-hmm. And so with your family members too, there's a way to go about things, because, in my family, I'm very fortunate. The questions that are asked are oftentimes much more technical because everyone's pitching for the same side already. We talk about, it really is just methodology that goes about it. I don't have a lot of family members, although I have some notable ones who are doing things or holding ideas which are contrary to the faith in a very deep way, contrary to the natural law, even as something like abortion is. And yeah, you should try to see if you can plant a seed. The biggest thing for a lot of traditionalists is going to be the Sunday after Thanksgiving, I think, where you have to decide if you're going to go to the Latin Mass up the road, or if you're going to go with the family to the Novus Ordo or whatever other rite it might be, but probably the Novus Ordo. In my family, the way that it's my faith is developed, it means that it's like I don't want to rock the boat too much with my family because I love them to death. And since the Novus Ordo is obviously a legitimate form of the Mass, it's not like you're betraying Christ or anything. But again, you have to factor in tact. If the whole family wants to go out for one last hurrah on Sunday morning, and you have to be the one who's so desperate to drive 2 hours out of the way, it might just be a good thing to take one for the team, especially if you're pitching for the same side.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it brings to mind something that I've thought recently. I think that it's worthy for you to go to the new Mass if you have to. It wouldn't be my personal choice.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be the personal choice of many people. Mm-hmm. And me, from a personal perspective, I'm just afraid of going there and seeing liturgical abuse or whatever. Yeah. But Jesus is still there. And he has to put up with it. So you can too.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point, yeah.
And one of the things that you can do at that Mass is an act of reparation. Or as a fact, like you can do acts of reparation for a family member that's been, astray, or who holds a very damaging belief. You could always offer up Holy Communion for that person if you're in a state of grace, you can do acts of reparation, like praying a rosary, or you can give up a certain dessert a certain day, or coffee, or whatever. There's so many different things you can do. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If it's going to cause a division in your family, that one Sunday out of the year that you get to see your family, just take it for the team, man.
Yeah,
just do it.
Pitching from the same side.
Yeah.
Or, also is, not to think that that's the only option though, but the inverse is also true.
You can invite them too.
This is a great opportunity to say to cousin, hey, look, dude, I get it. I don't want to go back there. Right? Listen, I'm a traditional Latin mass person now. You have an ear for music or something like that. You gotta come with me just this Sunday. You got mom, dad. I see you guys only a couple times a year or something. Like, I love you guys greatly. Let me show you how my faith has developed, because I was on the rocks a couple of years ago, and now I'm on fire about the faith, and it's so authentically Catholic. This is why I'm smiling, And to be a glad trad, honestly, is that, again, there's such a deeper, authentic dive into Christ and Christ's church that hopefully somebody in your family, somebody in your circle should be interested in what that does, because it does change your disposition.
Yeah, if you're living it out day to day, in your everyday life, people will notice it.
That's absolutely right. And it's like, well, what's going to shake you then? You're smart on what battles you pick. You make sure that you don't have a shotgun blast bar fest slug, and you have to burn down uncle and auntie's house, because you just had to tell, you had to school everybody on what the real reason for the infiltration was, or something like that. No, but instead it's going forward and understanding that, God gives, family is a blessing. And there's so many people who really don't have families. Not all of us are like Rudy here and have 3 turkey days in a spectus plan. But it's true. Family is a blessing. And even if there are members who are outside of the faith, or members that are questionable about their beliefs, we can give thanks to God for this great kind of gift and offer it back to him. And what's a better way than to care genuinely about the souls of our family members? And that also means taking care of their facets as humans as well. You can care about someone's soul and also be mindful of their feelings. You can care about someone's feelings and also be mindful of their soul a lot of times. And so don't feel like you're fighting alone and that you can't win, or don't even feel like you want to fight, for heaven's sake. I mean, again, there's this desire when you become a traditional Catholic, I understand, really, to make sure that you stay kind of in the lanes of orthodoxy that we see develop. And that's a good thing, by the way. And so you shouldn't lose that sense of identity just because you're out at a family gathering. But if you start really feeling like, I'm the only fish out of water, nobody understands. Essentially, here's a better way of putting it. Essentially, if you get really angsty, teenage, whiny about it, take a step back and maybe reevaluate just for a moment.
Yeah, I think it's still a fight, but you're playing chess.
Yeah.
You're being strategic. You don't send in all your troops into one part of the battle.
Oh, I do, for chess.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, let's not play against each other, but
yeah. I'm not a big chess player.
Ooh.
But
hey, are you even a trad if you don't play chess?
I play checkers.
There we go.
King me.
Ooh. I don't want. One thing also I think that's nice about going back home though, as a traditional Catholic too, is first off, I think it's important, real quick, that you do check some of the internet culture out the door.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
Yes.
It's fun to laugh at Susan from the parish council until your Aunt Susan is actually on the parish council.
Until she's literally Susan.
Until she's literally Susan from the parish council. But here's something else. Because of, say, this Amazon Synod, for instance, that last month, my dad, who is a wonderful man, is a very good Catholic. He's not a traditionalist. He's that very like JP2 kind, I'd say. But my dad, texted me for the first time being like, what's this Pachamama stuff about? And I sent him back memes.
Well, Dad, buckle up here.
Let's sit you down. Here's Dr. Taylor Marshall. First time I ever sent my dad a Dr. Taylor Marshall video. I was so proud of myself. I was like, yeah.
Was it about the synod?
Yeah, it was about the synod.
The synod?
The synod, we are not paid for by the Vatican.
So we could say that.
But we are willing. Some of that money that went missing, I'm more than happy to take it.
Nah, I don't want to be on the bankroll of the Vatican.
Okay, you're right. Never mind. I scratched that. But no, it's serious. It's like,
sponsored by.
That's sponsored by whoever the last finance head was before he got sacked. Anyway. But it's true. There's kind of part of the joy, part of the fun also is that you get to go home with people and you get to sit down and be like, hey, this is what's going on in my world. And you can show them a trad meme. Mm-hmm. You can show them some of the fun stuff. You can show them how your parish choir sounds. Ours at St. Vitus is top notch. It's wonderful. You can show, our priests. We had a parish barbecue event where one of our priests made ribs. And it was just exciting to see the whole parish life really fulfill itself. So again, just easy ways of sharing your life and sharing your faith in that very authentic experience without having to be so adversarial all the time.
Yeah, you gotta come into it as a conversationalist.
All right.
You're going in there, you're having different moments in the gathering where you could pepper in things like that, things that are important to you, things that are really wholesome and enriching, not only for you, but could be for them. Mm-hmm. And you have all kinds of speaking points that you can bring into an event as a glad trad in your pocket, in your little tool chest. Oh, my sister likes music. She hasn't been to mass in a long time. Hey, sis, I know you like music. The polyphonic choir that we have is unreal. I cry every Sunday. Maybe you should come out sometime. I think you would really like it. That's a talking point. Mm-hmm. That's a thing in common you have with them.
And it's authentic kind of witnessing.
Yeah. And then later on you can have tougher conversations.
Yeah. I mean, that's in my family, every year, so I have a sibling who's outside the faith. Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem to hold a particular resentment for it. It's just kind of out, which is good. It's bad to be outside the faith, of course, but it's a good place to be outside the faith on, because every holiday, notably Christmas, I say, hey, I'm the one in the family to be able to do it just because of our sibling dynamic. Hey, how about you come to Christmas Mass with me? And she's been very receptive. She's been extremely warm and reciprocal. I haven't taken her to a traditional Latin Mass yet. And I could not take her to the Christmas Vigil one or the Easter Vigil one because that would probably kill her. But I think that a normal missa cantata would do her some good, maybe. And if not, at the very least, you planted a seed again. And the point of all is you're having a good time doing it. Again, it's your family. You're going to be stuck with them for a while, and it's not like you shouldn't expect, especially for family members, that you maybe want to go and really see where they're at with their faith, and if you're good and grounded enough to really help them see the authenticity of the faith, you're stuck with these people for years. And our transformations as traditional Catholics didn't happen overnight. Yeah, it's almost like sanctification, but it's a process. You pick up things every month that's just a little more authentic in your walk with Christ. Mm-hmm. You learn a different prayer. You learn a different language in that prayer. You cut a habit. You grow a virtue, and so. It's something that you have to just take stock on. If there's a little seed that's planted at this Thanksgiving, who knows if, exchange numbers, maybe you'll be able to see them a little bit or something. And who knows, now by next Thanksgiving, you might be having a really serious talk with your cousin who was very pro-abortion or something last year. And then this year goes, well, I'm not so sure, all that kind of stuff. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because there's always an opportunity. If God is presenting the opportunity for you to speak to a family member, you're going to know. Yeah. You're going to feel that tugging in your heart to say something. And I remember there was a birthday party that I went to at my mom's house. I can't remember whose birthday it was, but at the end of the night, everything started winding down. And there was a few moments with my mom where it was just a one-on-one conversation. And I felt that at that moment I was being prompted to ask her, maybe it's time to go to confession. have you ever thought about going to confession and being able to receive our blessed Lord in a state of grace? I've never actually seen my mom receive Holy Communion. And I felt at that moment, I was getting a little bit disheartened, like, oh, my mom's older now, and I would like to see her, eventually, come back to the church and be practicing again, and, to share that with my mom. She believes in God. It's just, she's just kind of fallen away from the practice. Mm-hmm. And that was a beautiful opportunity because it wasn't a confrontation. It was a conversation. It was about, hey, Mom, I would really love to see that, and you could receive our blessed Lord in the Eucharist. That would be incredible. And she was like, you know what? I would be open to that, So we're still trying to figure it out how we're going to make it.
I'm always in awe of how long Saint Monica prayed for Saint Augustine. Because Augustine was middle-aged and had a kid and had actually fled North Africa to Rome and had met St. Ambrose and had done all the things and then done them over again.
Living a debaucherous lifestyle.
Living a very debaucherous lifestyle before he came into the fullness of the faith. And Confessions detail that. I have a kind of similar situation because my sister being outside the faith, but this past, honestly, 3 months ago, we were able to get my 6-year-old nephew baptized.
Wow.
And
that's huge.
And, my parents could have done it on their own, right? But they were like, listen, like, your sister has to be there. She has to be receptive. And I remember I sat down with her a couple months before the baptism and I said, look, I'm like, let's make no modicums about it. Like, I know you're outside the faith and I don't know why, because there's never been like a strong enough reason, but you are. But I see the soul of my nephew and, I think that you see it too. Because he knows the prayers and I've seen you pray with him and he does the sign of the cross. And I mean, this kid's incredible. And you see why Christ says in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to be like a child. So please give some thought to his baptism. I mean, if it's for you, if it's nothing, at worst, it doesn't affect you whatsoever. But in reality, it's everything. And she was receptive to it. And so we had him baptized. Thanks be to God. And I know that, oftentimes as parents, you live vicariously through your children, a part of you does. And also, your children being gifts from God can bring that, hopefully that the understanding of what the value of a soul is back to it. So I pray for my sister constantly because I think that was a tremendous step forward. It's not the ultimate thing, but what's funny about those sorts of things, especially with family members who have fallen away, is that they're just a confession away from absolution. Mm-hmm. For someone who's been away for years, it's probably gonna take a while, but they really are just a confession away from all the wonders of the church, being the graces that God pours out, being back on them. And especially when you're a traditionalist, you become so keen to what sort of graces flow from Holy Mother Church because of what Christ's sacrifice means at each and every Mass. Yes. And how can you not tell these people who you love, hey, I love you because I love you. I want your souls to be saved for heaven's sake.
Yes, that is true charity, to desire the best for that person, which is to have an authentic relationship with Christ. And you can't ever get tired of loving your family. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. I mean, I come from a broken family. It's hard to love some of the people in our family. Sometimes I have to love them from a distance. But regardless, you have to love them. Why? Because we have the model of Christ. How much did Christ love us? Well, he loved us so much that he offered his life on the cross. So we have to offer up also our difficulties, our maybe difficult relationships. Like we have to offer that up too, and continue loving those people, because that, as well as prayer and constantly, trying your best to get that person to heaven, that is what's most important. That is true charity. You're praying for them. You're not giving up on them. you find opportunities to try and help them on their journey back to the church, back to Christ. And what else is there? I mean, it's just family is the only thing that you have at the end of the day.
No.
It's all you got.
They're the ones who come to bat for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to change gears and ask a question real quick. Do you think it's a sin to shop on Thanksgiving for stuff?
On Thanksgiving Day?
On Thanksgiving Day.
I would say try not to.
Are you even a trad if you forego your family to shop on Thanksgiving Day?
I think you're more of a trad if you don't shop. Put your phone away, people.
Put your phone
don't
away.
have your phone out. Try and talk to your family. Try and have a conversation with them.
And don't just get through it because you want a Black Friday shop the next day.
Are you excited for Black Friday? Do you do that?
No, and here's why, because online exists.
I don't think Black Friday is a thing anymore.
I don't think it is
I don't
either.
think the pricing is there.
Well, I don't think that's a good point. I don't think the pricing is there. And also, here's the other thing too: the fight compilations on YouTube have just gotten considerably worse lately.
You watch that?
No, of course not.
Ooh, Jordan.
No. Well, it looks like I gotta go. Just play. No, but that isn't. Look, I'll tell you this right now. So I love the concept of Thanksgiving. Now I say the concept not because I have any real restrictive thing against Thanksgiving. I just I'm not really a turkey person, but I am a cranberry kind of person, So like the stuff that comes in the can,
You like that?
I like it because it comes out of the can and you can see it's the shape of the
ridges.
can. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of canned jelly or whatever it is.
Wow.
I like the
Wow, what a
actual
snob.
raspberry sauce.
Oh, the actual well,
I like a chef to go and buy the cranberries.
Oh
and
yeah,
boil
worse
them
than
down.
Genevieve. I'll tell you this right now: when you have 3 Thanksgivings like this guy does, I suppose you can take your pick of the cream of the crop, right?
Yeah,
some of us have to get what we get and not throw a fit.
when I'm hosting Thanksgiving, it'll probably change because it's gonna take a long time.
I want to be at one of your hosted Thanksgivings. I'm gonna bring nothing but canned cranberry stuff.
I mean, if you want to do that, that would be your offering.
I'll tell you this right now about Black Friday. It's not that I go out and really look for stuff. There's typically one item that oftentimes electronics, you might as well just wait till Cyber Monday, but it starts earlier every year. Mm-hmm. I'm just hey, this year I think I might want to get a new monitor. So I just peruse on Amazon until I see a new monitor.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's not as hectic on the front for Black Friday, right? But I do feel sorry for all the the workers on the back end who just have to ship everything everywhere.
Yeah, holidays are tough, guys.
Holidays are tough, guys.
Which is why you need to keep it in perspective. I mean, Thanksgiving, it's a time to reflect on all the great gifts that God has showered us with.
And it's Thanksgiving, and what no one ever asks is, well, not just what are we giving thanks for, but who are we giving thanks to? Did your family have the tradition where you guys hold hands and say what you're thankful for?
We don't hold hands, but we do the thankful thing.
Oh, they just can't stand you, huh? Well, what I was gonna say is this.
Well, I have clammy hands. So.
Oh, can I feel?
No.
Yeah, okay. So my family does because we love each other.
Yikes.
Yeah. No, but one thing also that kind of an important almost evangelization thing, or just to get your family interested in where your journey is with your faith. Because again, in terms of the scope of my life, I'm relatively new to the traditional Catholic thing. It's not very different in terms of my, I grew up pretty Orthodox Catholic, thank God. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any of those trying times that a lot of very, very staunch, good traditionalists went through in order to rediscover the authenticity of their faith. This is just a natural progression. But maybe for you, this is a night and day kind of thing. And so to stand up and say, at the end of the day, family is a gift from God. And I'm so blessed to have family. And I recognize that because the core of this family is the Catholic faith. The core of what structures and makes me understand how valuable family is the fact that God blessed it, that man and woman join together, that they be fruitful and multiply, that the modicum of relatives who love you and care for you, and those souls who are so intimately tied with yours. So maybe for Thanksgiving, you stand up and you say, I am grateful for my faith, and not just in the platitude way that everyone means it, but genuinely. I mean, faith is a gift from God. It's a gift that you've responded positively to. It's like grace. You respond positively to grace, which comes from God.
And then you drop the mic.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, and then you drop the mic,
sauce.
you kick the ham or the turkey, you dab out just perfectly.
Talk about a shotgun approach.
Happy Thanksgiving, pilgrims. This is typically where mad trads go. You mad about anything, Rudy?
I'm mad, but I'm composed.
Whoa. I don't know how to rhyme that. So I'm just going to say mad trads or mad trads who are composed. How's that?
You know, when
composed trads.
You know, when you do something wrong and, you know, your mom says, "Oh, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed."
Disappointed? Ooh.
It's almost worse.
Oh, no.
This is disappointed trads. Okay. So look, I mean, I've come to not really expect all that much from the USCCB. Okay.
I get some orons again in the chat.
I mean, let's be honest. I don't expect that much from them.
Yeah. No.
And yet, I'm still disappointed. Why? Because of Bishop McElroy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a conversation that was taking place in one of the meetings about whether or not to contain a specific verbiage in a passage that was spoken by the Pope. And the argument was whether or not to keep the preeminence of abortion being, like
the top issue facing our world,
facing the world, in that verbiage that they were trying to pass for whatever it was. I can't remember what it is. And there was a lot of talk of saying that it is not a preeminent issue, which is just so disappointing. It's just so disappointing and disheartening to hear that. Mm-hmm. Because it's so clear that there is a division between good bishops and bad bishops.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it that you could think possibly? How can you do the mental gymnastics to say that abortion is not a preeminent issue? Are you kidding me?
You know what's funny is, first off, to say like the division of good and bad bishops is so there. And so just as Bishop McElroy said those things, I very much like, it was Bishop Strickland who got it first. And all he said is preeminence needs to stay.
And Bishop Chaput as well.
Yeah. And then he sat down and Bishop Chaput came along and brought the actual powder to it.
Yeah.
Two-thirds. So the vote, by the way, in case anyone knows what we're trying to talk about, the USCCB, our lovely bishops conference, which I should say just as a technicality, because sometimes there's a little confusion on the pronouncements of the USCCB. It's not magisterial.
No.
So them producing a document on gun control or migration or racism or whatever.
Or ecological sins.
Or I'm sorry, ecological sins. Yeah. Anything that's not particularly Catholic. Mm-hmm. You listen, you're bishops, so you have to listen to what they say. But is it a matter of faith and morals, which is incumbent upon your Catholic soul?
Probably not.
Most of the time, probably not.
But still, that discussion of abortion and diminishing it the way that particular bishop did, it's just, even though it's not a dogmatic constitution,
we know what it means.
It does so much damage to the faithful.
And you know what it is, honestly? Here's the funny thing. It's not that there's an equivalency going on here that does not stand. Abortion is equal to these other sorts of issues going on in the world, like sea turtles and straws. The answer is we're talking about the killing of not only babies in the womb, but like the smallest, most fragile human beings that we have. The most fragile souls with a corpus around them are being destroyed. Yeah, that's the top issue. And it affects everything. Because the moment that we say that life isn't sacred, wherever it begins, it completely depends to the person's subjective choices. And then we say it's no longer sacred. If life itself isn't sacred, then nothing else. Then why are the sea turtles sacred? Why would you talk about gun control or immigrant rights or whatever else they try to equate it with? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. My biggest disappointment is this. And so first off, if you haven't already, Dr. Taylor Marshall has a very good video on a wrap-up of the USCCB conference. Patrick Coffin has a very good video about it as well. So those are two very good resources if you just want to kind of figure out. The USCCB it's a boardroom meeting. When we hear about bishop councils, an expensive one, people. The annual budget is $130 million for the USCCB. That's a whole can of worms. Patrick Coffin's video is very good because he talks about how the Catholic Relief Services get 64% of its money from Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. And that's important, by the way, because it means that we're not going to be very Catholic in our outlook if we're getting money from an institution that doesn't really like the actual authentic Catholic faith.
And just remember, too, that he who pays the piper plays the tune.
Aye. Yeah.
So
now you heard, of course, now listen, a couple Sundays ago, we heard to give Caesar to Caesar and what's God's to God. So we're not advocating for the monarchist revolt just yet. But, you know, what's funny is we read about good holy bishops like Saint Athanasius or Saint Nicholas. I mean, Saint Athanasius is a perfect example. I mean, the church woke up and it was Arian one day. Mm-hmm. And here's a guy who's been cast out and he's got to stand up and say something. And he does. Saint Nicholas hopped up from a council meeting to punch the heretic Arius in the face, which is probably the best thing ever. I mean, imagine when you watch these guys kind of conduct their meetings and talk about something, there's no joy of the faith. There's no gladness about it.
There's no prayer.
There's no prayer. There's no rosary. They don't talk about Christ. They don't talk about bringing the authentic Catholic witness. It is legitimately just a meeting of talking points, and they might as well be company executives who don't care about what's really going on the ground. Mm-hmm. And you know what's funny is I heard this point made for, especially after the Summer of Shame, talking about being accessible and accountable as a bishopric for this country. They meet at a Marriott hotel that's inaccessible to the faithful. Apparently there were some bishops, Bishop Strickland amongst them, who outside actually praying a rosary with some of the lay people.
The pro-life people.
Yeah, the pro-life people, which is wonderful to see. Yeah. So look, the point is this. We should know our good priests and our good bishops. For our good bishops especially, it's extremely important to support them. For our bishops who are middling though, I mean, the fact of the matter is that 1/3 of the bishops voted to say that abortion was not the preeminent issue. 69 of them did. That's a very unfortunate chunk. And there are a lot of men who have obviously decided to not say anything legitimately stalwart about the faith, to write out their pensions and write out the faithful's kind of dime. And, they don't want to rock the boat. But to be a bishop once upon a time was a guaranteed martyrdom. In St. Nicholas's time, it was a guaranteed martyrdom. Yes. So these are people who knew that in their short time, they had to, for the sake of Christ and Christ's church, rock the boat. So pray for the bishops, even those who you might say, well, I seem to be against.
Yeah, especially pray for the bad ones.
Yeah, especially for the bad ones.
And entrust them into the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Mm-hmm. Entrust your family into the intercession of our Blessed Mother for their conversion and really for a return to orthodoxy and true doctrine.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2 of the Glad Chad podcast. If you liked what we had to say, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, smash that like button. Does that sound right, Rudy? Does that sound like the talking points?
Yes, we're on multiple platforms.
We are.
So if you'd like to share the podcasts, we put up on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon so that you're always informed when we release a new video. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher,
Google's podcasting.
Yes.
Essentially, where all good podcasts are sold.
And if you'd like to help us out, not only with your prayers, please keep us in your prayers as well. Write a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitchers or wherever you're listening to us. Write a review and help us to get more listeners and get the word out.
Yeah, by all means, please share this podcast. We are starting from the ground up, but we are very, very excited about it, and we love sharing the joy of the trad side of Catholicism, the side your mom doesn't want you to know. You know, that's us. All right, guys, have a happy Thanksgiving. God bless you and Mary keep you. Adios.
See ya.